Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Hall. Reed should be here at some point during this episode in some duration or time. Thank you for joining us, the Burgundy Zone. We are part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. And the title of today's episode is What's Bakin? And we thought we'd bring in to be able to tell us what's smelling good in the kitchen is our guy, Mr. Zach Selby of the Washington Commanders. Thank you for joining us on a Sunday, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, I appreciate the Bakin reference there. No, I'm currently at a DC Defenders game. Just show like how much I appreciate you guys. I'm taking time out of my busy Saturday or Sunday actually. I don't even know what day of the weekend it is, but spend time with y'all. I really appreciate that.
No, I appreciate you, Selby, and I appreciate you fighting through the beer snake because obviously that's something that always gets on to people. But I want my first question to you: what do we make of not knowing what the Commanders are going to do at 2?
Well, here's what I'll say. It sounds like that's exactly what they want you to think, right? They have no idea what they're going to be doing, right? Because every once in a while you hear, oh, Jen Daniels is a lock to be the guy. Every once in a while you hear that Drake May is the guy. Every once in a while you hear, oh, they like J.J. McCarthy. They have no national media outlet has any idea what this Commanders team is going to do, and that's what they want because they want some confusion. They want to let you know they're considering all options here. And, I mean, honestly, like, they're in the best position possible for this, right? Like, they have all the options in front of them. They can choose whatever option they want. And if you look at, like, I honestly don't think, like, at this point, you can't really go wrong with all three of them. They all have their own problems, for sure. But they all have their really own unique strengths as well. And I think, you could put any of those top three in there because J.J. McCarthy has been kind of rising at the boards a little bit. You could say, honestly, that you could be fine with all of them. And you could go into your rookie season feeling pretty confident about what you're going to be for the future.
Yeah, I agree with that. And speaking of the quarterbacks, I mean, it's the great quarterback debate, and you got to pick a side. So do you have a preference for any three of these quarterbacks, or are you just fine with whoever they pick and hopefully they develop and work out?
So I'm a little bit, conflicted about all three of these guys. I'll admit, I tend to go towards Jaden Daniels more often than not, just because I like the way he does things. That like you can't really find a lot of players out there who does the things that he can do. He's got the ability to throw, and that he doesn't really throw down the middle of the field that much, but he does have some really big time throws under his belt, and he has the improvisation. You like what he does with his legs. He needs to protect himself, and he's a little bit of a smaller frame. But you just look at him and you say, wow, like, how can I not pass up on a guy like that? But, on the other side of that, if I'm not feeling Jane Daniels, I say, well, look at Drake May. Drake May has, this prototypical size. His footwork is not really there, but he's got a lot more experience, and he's able to make some really big throws as well. And plus, he knows how to protect himself because a lot of times Jane Daniels is just throwing himself out there to the wolves. And as much as I like his toughness, I'm really sure how he's going to be able to do that, in the NFL. And J.J. McCarthy, JJ has been a guy that I think people have really warmed up to over the last month or so, just because of how he seems like he's really operating NFL-style offense. And while the volume of NFL throws is not necessarily there, all the throws that he makes are NFL throws against with the NFL pass rush, with an NFL offense. All that being said, I still lean towards Jaden Daniels as one of my favorite players to watch. And again, it just goes back to I think his ceiling is a lot higher, and you can throw him in right away. So you look at him and you say, okay, maybe he's not going to be able to protect himself as much, but I think you could really hit a lottery ticket a lot better with Jaden Daniels than maybe some of the other quarterbacks out there.
I agree with you. Selby, the power structure of this draft pick, it's a really good question that's been brought to us. And how do you think that they're going to because obviously Cliff Kingsbury could have his favorites. Dan Quinn could have his favorites. But at the end of the day, it comes down to Adam Peters. How do you think it's going to come down to that decision?
Well, I think the good thing about it is that, one, it's a very collaborative approach. And I think this is going to be the big test of if like they actually mean that, because they've been touting that basically from the moment that Adam Peters first became the general manager. They say they want to have a collaborative approach. They're going to all come together and say, okay, Adam, what do you want? Adam is going to consider everybody's opinions, and then they're going to come up with what is best for this organization. Two, what makes me feel really good about it is that no matter who they pick, whether it's Jane Daniels, Drake May, Jaden McCarthy, or maybe trade down and pick some of those other guys, I feel really confident about knowing that there's a lot of other coaches out on the staff with a lot of experience in developing quarterbacks. Ryan Johnson developed quarterbacks. Keith Kingsbury developed quarterbacks. You've got a lot of other coaches on that staff. They've all got some experience doing that. So it's going to be more of it takes a village approach to developing this guy, and we'll see if that actually ends up proving to be the right approach. But you do know there's going to be a lot of cooks in the kitchen to make sure that whoever they draft, this kid is going to be prepared and protected and elevated in the best way possible. That really highlights their skill sets.
Yeah, I agree with that. Obviously, the team was really active a month ago, or 2 months ago, back in free agency. They've added, I think, 20-plus players to the roster right now. Of the 20, out of the core kind of players like the Frankie Louvu's, the Bobby Wagners, Austin Ecklers, those type of guys, who do you envision having the biggest impact on this team going into this season?
That is such a fascinating question because, honestly, it feels like they've signed literally every single free agent on the market. I mean, I think they lead the league in free agent acquisitions, but I'll give you one on offense and I'll give you one on defense. The one that got me excited the most was Austin Eckler, just because of what he can. I think he can really elevate this backfield in a way that really hasn't been able to be done in quite a while. Because, they really wanted Antonio Gibson to kind of be what Austin Eckler is right now, right? He's that versatile weapon that can be used in a lot of different ways. Yep. Now, he has similar skill set at AG, but he also has the background, has the resume, has the ability to do all this other stuff that you really want an AG to do. And that's no fault to AG, but I think Austin Eckler has a history of doing all the things they wanted AG to do in the past. In terms of on the other side, Bobby Wagner is the guy that really, really excites me. Yes, he's a little bit long in the tooth, but look, this guy led the league in tackles last year. And he's at 100 tackles every year he's been in the league. And he knows how to set a tone on defense. I feel like this defense right now needs a definitive leader aside from Jonathan Allen, aside from Deron Payne. They need a guy at linebacker who's going to say, look, this is a tone, this is a standard, and we're going to follow it no matter what. And he has years of being able to do that with the Seahawks, a year with the Chargers. He's been able to do that at a high level. And he's one of the best linebackers in the league for a reason. So I feel like he's going to be able to really change the defense in a very positive way. And I can't wait to see his leadership style in person because you hear a lot about it. And I just can't wait to see how true those stories really are.
Yeah, and Selby, to wrap this up, only a couple more questions for you, sir. But Brandon Aiyuk had been talked about as a possible trade candidate. Do you think Washington is going to do that?
I would guess not, honestly, because that's not a knock against Brandon Aiyuk because he's a great player. But I would say, look, this receiver class is so good. It's so deep. You can find a really good contributor in the 4th or 5th round. I honestly wouldn't hate it if they picked up a guy in the 3rd round. But I think, why would you want to trade assets for a guy that, while is good, but you can get a guy that, you can have under contract for at least the next 4 years and possibly, be kind of like that 3rd or 4th guy behind Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson. So, yeah, I get it. I get the connection with Adam Pearce, but at the same time, why would you do that when you can just use that capital to draft a guy that is younger and maybe even more talented? It's ironic that you're asking me that because I'm at a game right now where they're very similar. But honestly, I think they're fine with where they are with Turner right now. I mean, Jameson Crowder really showed that he has some ability. And I think Larry Izzo is really going to light a fire under these guys, and I think he's going to embrace these new changes and put them in the best position to succeed. So I don't really think they're going to make a whole lot of more additions there. I think they're like, okay, we're good with Jameson Crowder because he has some ability. He has the history of being a really solid guy. And plus, on top of that, he can contribute on offense as well. So maybe they'll bring in some different guys to compete, but at the same time, I I kind of feel like they're set there. I don't really feel like they're going to be doing anything more drastic in that regard. I wouldn't say there's one guy that really stands out to me. I mean, but it's probably going to be the quarterbacks. I mean, here's what else. I can't really confirm or deny those because I've been told by leadership that they don't really want us to acknowledge those. This kind of if they're out there, they're out there. But here's what I'll say is like they're bringing those guys in for a reason, and the top 30 visits, the top part of it is kind of weird because that doesn't necessarily mean that they're like the top 30 picks on their draft board. It necessarily mean this. It just means that they want to learn more about him, right? I mean, they want to because I mean, there's been a lot of times where they haven't drafted guys from their 30 visits. I think Trent Williams was not a guy that they brought in right into the facility at all before they drafted him. So I mean, I wouldn't say I wouldn't put stock in them because they are important for the coaching staff to kind of learn a little more about the guys they're really seriously considering. But at the same time, I wouldn't like be overwhelmed just because you don't see some player's name out there that connected to Washington reportedly that they're not like interested in them because maybe there's a guy that they really like and that they we don't really need to know more about this guy. I think Jahan was actually not a 30 visit. I mean, I could be wrong on that. But I mean that's a similar case as well. So, and this is gonna sound maybe like an inside voice team reporter sort of thing. Maybe not necessarily with a team centric approach, but I would just say, look, don't freak out if you see a name there, or if you see a name that you just really don't like. I mean, it's all part of their process, and I'm pretty confident that whatever Adam Peters ended up doing with his draft class, we're in about a month we're gonna look at it and say, oh wow, this is actually a really good class.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for putting that. I was muted during that question to you, so we should just want to reiterate. It's going back to San Francisco. Adam Peters and his time with the 49ers, they drafted 44% of their 30 visit schedules. So I just wanted to put that in there. Thank you, Selby. I can't thank you enough for joining us, brother. Go and enjoy the Defenders game, sir.
Absolutely. Y'all have a good one.
You too,
Appreciate
brother.
it. Enjoy the game.
All right, everybody. We spoke with the man, Selby. Always love for Selby being able to make some time out for us. He could have told me before that he had a Defenders game today. I wouldn't have forced him. Like, I wouldn't have asked him to do that. I would have said, enjoy your time. You know what I mean? And my apologies about being muted there, guys. Yes, it has been a good freaking weekend. How has your weekend been?
Yeah, it's been good. Worked yesterday with good old Patrick, and I got some overtime, but just been chilling, kicking back.
You got some overtime this week? Good for you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, everybody. So let's get into our fan questions. And I just want, before we get into that, though, we are doing our draft this Thursday. Commander's Call has taken on the actual first pick for the fans. And then what I'm going to do this week is the fan base is going to have the second overall pick. So Commander's Call, since he was the first one to come out, he's going to be able to make the Commander's pick this week. And so then between us three, we'll differentiate who's going to be 1, 3, and 4. And then we'll rotate. And so the next one would be 6. So I think your boy Mark McCauley reached out to you and said he wants to be a part of the draft. So we'll have those two chimed up. We have more spots available. If you want to do it, just write in the comments section. I'll reach out. Give me your email or something like that, or DM us on Facebook or Twitter, Instagram, IG. Just search for the Burgundy Zone. You could find us there. But I'm really excited about it this year because it's going to be. I want to say that we should allow the ability to trade, but what we're saying is if you are going to trade, you have to supply why, like the assets included, everything like that, why it's a good decision, whatnot, and but you'd also be admitting that you're forfeiting your pick and you wouldn't be getting your draft pick in for that draft class. But we would all appreciate you doing that. Now let's get into our fan questions. This one was submitted by the Colonel. Before tearing his ACL and OTAs, Armani Rogers looked like the most promising tight end on the team last season. With him returning from injury, John Bates and Cole Turner still on the roster, and the addition of Zach Ertz, are we going to target a tight end in the draft?
Excuse me. I think they are going to target a tight end. Unfortunately, some of those names that you read off, I think might not make the team. I know there's a lot of promise for Armani Rogers, and I think obviously the injury last year kind of derailed that promise. And just like a lot of other NFL teams, and if you've seen it with this offseason, they didn't really have an allegiance to anybody that was drafted here, signed here, was on this roster previous to them coming here. So would I like to see what Armani Rogers has to offer? Yes, because he was definitely an athletic guy, learning the position a little bit more, growing and developing. And so I do want to see what he has to offer, but I do think that they are going to, just like a lot of other positions and players, are going to try to get their own guys in here. And I do think they're going to draft a tight end. What round? I don't know. I would say maybe between 3 to 5. They'd probably look at a tight end. But, yeah, I do think that there's possible that Rodgers makes the team, but I do think that, yeah, they're going to target a tight end.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. Like, no disrespect to Armani Rogers, like none whatsoever. But it is amazing to me how people like put Armani Rogers above Cole Turner on like their own proverbial depth chart, so to speak. And it's kind of like, I mean, I love the fascination of what somebody could be and the imagination of it. But the fact is, you got to be healthy for me, dude. And it's
Right.
just, it's crazy how that works. But yes, you should always be targeting a tight end. Like that's something like Sam Laporta last season from Iowa. That's not somebody that was highly coveted in the draft process, right? Like I sat here and told everybody that he was probably the best all-around tight end on this pod, and I honestly believe that, and the Detroit got that. It doesn't matter where they are. You just have to be able to fit them in. Do I think that they're going to be in a position to target one of those tight ends early on? I don't believe so. I think there's other needs there. And depending on what happens in this draft and who falls, but I do expect them to target a tight end and somebody that could come in and help and not only just start the farm, but also possibly be able to produce for you. And there's a plethora of guys here. I know guys talked about Theo Johnson and others, and honestly, it doesn't really. If you can't be the number one on your college team, how can you expect to be competing for the number one on the pro team in year one? And if we're looking for efficiency to help the rookie quarterback out immediately, doesn't make sense to me. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I do expect them to add a tight end. There's plethora of guys. Cade Stover from Ohio State is very intriguing to me. And I
Yeah.
just recently started watching him, and that dude is a big freaking guy, man. And he runs. Hard runner,
Yep.
too. It's almost like he's a John Bates, but a more athletic John Bates, if that makes sense. Because he's a really, really good fundamental run blocker, like bulldozes dudes. That's somebody to keep an eye on, just throwing it out there. Now, this next question was submitted by Just Your Average Fly Guy moments ago on Twitter. He just sent in a picture of a trade request in the first round. Washington trades away pick 2. Minnesota trades away pick 11, 23, 108, next year's first round pick, and next year's third round pick. His question is, if Minnesota offered you this, would you take it and draft Penix at 11 and then the best right tackle you could? He's a lefty, so right tackle is his blind side at 23, and hopefully there's another left tackle available at 36, or they could trade up and use our seconds to snag one. Then we could use both tight ends in our QB, plus we'd have 2 firsts and 2 seconds next year. After watching his tape of every throw combined of his pro day, but 4-5 vert, I think he's a lot better than what people think. So what do you think about? Do you think that would you be open to that?
Uh, yeah. I mean, Michael Penix, I think he can be a decent quarterback in the NFL. The trade haul, like obviously, it's a nice haul for for trading down
No
from
pun
2.
intended.
I know, right? That's a nice haul for trading down to 2. But like we said before, like if Minnesota wants to jump all the way up to 2, you got to throw a guy like Justin Jefferson in there to even intrigue and pique my interest. But in your scenario, I mean, honestly, that's a pretty good kind of like plan because again, like you said, Michael Penix is left-handed, so the right tackle would be the play right there, and then you can, like you said, you have a pick at 11, 23. You get a first rounder next year. So yeah, if Adam Peters wanted to do that, like obviously, I'm a Jaden Daniels guy, and I would like them to draft Jaden Daniels at 2 or even Drake May. But again, if he thinks that Michael Penix is going to be the best quarterback in this draft and he's going to be the guy for the future, then all I can do is trust his evaluation of him and to go forward. And if it works out, then maybe you probably got your bookend or your right tackle because he's left-handed. You got your tackle of the future, quarterback of the future. You got future draft picks going forward, and I know right now they're projected to have like a lot of cap space going into 2025 as well. So you'd be set up for success. So wouldn't be a bad plan. Would that happen? I don't think so, but it wouldn't be a bad plan.
No, it's not a bad plan because getting Minnesota's picks there, it really puts you in a good position because a lot of what everybody has been saying, even Matt Miller recently was on somebody's podcast saying that Washington is the favorite to trade back up into the first to get a left tackle, right? And you don't have to do that in this scenario by take and trading with Washington because you got 11 and 23. So you didn't have to give away assets in order to get back into the first round. You just merely moved back 9 spots. And I love that idea. But my big question is the selection at 11, Fly Guy, because I love the way that you included the context. We had this discussion in our Discord the other night, asking why wouldn't you do that trade in the sense of saying that you could get the left tackle and the quarterback. I think the question was, would you take Jordan Morgan and JJ McCarthy or Joe Alt and Michael Penix? And I immediately said Joe Alt and Michael Penix. But I've said that also creates a dilemma because Michael Penix is left-handed. Would Joe Alt be your right tackle in that sense? And that's where that kind of dilemma is. So that's why I love your question, Fly Guy, because you include that. And so sitting at 11, I would argue that Talise Fuaga, somebody like that who can play right tackle for you, you'd be able to say I could get him and then possibly Michael Penix or whoever. But that's if you get Michael Penix, do you want that right tackle? So you have the ability possibly at 11 with like Olu Fashanu. Lord forbid Joe Alt falls that far. You could add him there and then get a quarterback like Bo Nix or somebody else at 23. But it's not a bad idea if you're looking at this team saying there's no way we could compete this year and we have to build for the future. And I understand if that's the route they want to go down. I've always been a big proponent of trading back in these sort of scenarios. Over the years, I've always said that some of these guys are hyped up and everything, but I also understand wanting just to get the best possible quarterback prospect because that's not something that we've ever had here. But we don't know the quarterback evals, Hall. You know what I mean? And that's the hard part about this. Like, we don't know if they think that these guys are eventual superstars. We don't know what their quarterback evals are. We could sit here and say this. Of course they're superstars. There's a lot of people out there saying that about Malik Willis. A lot of people out there who were saying that about Trey Lance and Zach Wilson, and they won't admit it to you, but they did. And I watched it. I witnessed it. I kept my mouth quiet.
I synced it
With my own eyes. But that's a great trade proposal, man. And honestly, I would not be mad at it if we walked away with that haul. Because like you said, next season you'd had 2 first-round picks. And given with what the Vikings have, maybe it blows up in their face and you're dealing with 2 very good first-round selections. And at that point, you're playing with house money. But I will say this. This coaching staff is obviously built out for the success of a big, quick turnover. If you're going to replenish 30 players through free agency, you damn well better have a very good coaching staff to be able to get these guys up and running by the time that the season comes around, you know? And I will tip my cap to them in that regard because they definitely had a plan for what they wanted to do and they executed it. And we'll say this about Michael Penix. He's 6'3", dude. He sits in that perfect kind of range for a quarterback. And yes, he's had injuries and everything, but him running the 4.5, 4.6 kind of shows you everything. So I honestly, I love Penix. Not as much as Reed. Reed is a huge Penix guy, but I'm also a big fan of Bo Nix as well. And honestly, the ones I'm not a big fan is just JJ McCarthy, honestly. And there's no disrespect to the kid. It's just, maybe I just don't know what I'm seeing. Maybe I'm just an idiot, which is quite possible in reality, in all sense. Now let's go to the Discord for our fan questions. And this one was submitted by Yam Sensei. Thank you, Yam. What big changes do you possibly see happening to fix the abysmal defensive performance of the previous year?
Well, just I think the coaching is going to be just 10 times better than how they were getting coached up last year. Um, there's a lot of guys that are on 1-year deal, so there's going to be a lot of guys that have that chip on their shoulder and want to show that, hey, I deserve to get if not a long-term contract here or a multi-year contract here, I'm going to get it. I deserve to get it somewhere else. If you look at Dallas's defense, since Dan Quinn has gotten there, they've been a top 5 defense. Obviously, that goes into drafting the players and developing the players, which he brought a lot of guys or a couple guys from that coaching staff as well that had a hand in developing those players and turning them into good defensive players. And a guy like Deron Bland, who is possibly going to be a star, even like a superstar. So I do think that the coaching is going to be a big difference in the turnaround for this defense going into this season.
What changes do I see to possibly fix the abysmal defensive performance of the previous year? First off, it's fundamentals. It's communication and also tackling. The tackling last season was absolutely abysmal. And if this coaching staff went back, and I'm sure they did, they watched the film, Cam Curl was honestly the only legit tackler you had on the team last season. And he's gone now. So you got to make sure that you go in with the fundamental aspect of saying, we're going to be a tackling football team. Not only are we going to be a tackling football team, we're going to be a tackling with aggression and violence. And when you think about that, instead, when you thought about Jack Del Rio, right, and everyone would complain, why is Kendall Fuller 8 yards off on 3rd and 3? Why are they in such a kind of prevent, just sit and allowing these guys to pick them apart? That's going to be the complete opposite of what you see here. What you see here is guys playing with their hair on fire, just seek and destroy. Just put on a Metallica song, seek and destroy. And that's essentially what the Washington game plan is going to be on defense every week. That's how you're going to fix it. Because instead of you being the receiving end, like imagine this is a battle, right? It is a defensive perimeter. You are putting yourself up on a defensive perimeter and you are protecting an area and you're stopping anything from coming in. That was the Jack Del Rio defense, even though they still allowed a crap load of guys in. What these guys are, with Witt, with Dan Quinn, they're now going to be running at the enemy. They're going to be going after and doing their own enforcing and inflicting of will. That's how you're going to kind of change how things have gone, and i.e. players like Jamin Davis and others. And I also think Benjamin St. Juste is going to benefit heavily from that intensity and violence because, you talked about Deron Bland. My whole point is that's cause and effect. The cause of the defensive line and the sack ratio that they produced and the violence and the aggression that they caused on quarterbacks allowed for their corners to be fruitful in these kind of gimme situations. And yes, they might be a superstar in that kind of system in Dallas, but if you put them somewhere else, I highly doubt it. And so I'm imagining that kind of prowess is coming to this secondary. And I think guys like Emmanuel Forbes, Quan Martin, they're going to eat. And they're going to do well. And that's where Ron Rivera is going to be asking for a Super Bowl ring down the line. When Emmanuel Forbes gets a pick in the end zone in the Super Bowl or something. I don't know. I'm just talking at this point, Yam. It's a great question, man. Now, the next question we have, this one is from Tim Towner. Who will be the 2 starting offensive tackles week 1? This is a heck of a question.
That is a good question.
It's
I
rude,
think that,
quite frankly, it's way too early.
Yeah. I don't know exactly who they're going to draft, obviously, because I don't know who exactly they like the most out of these tackles. But I do think it will be rookie left tackle. And I know people don't want to hear this, but I think Andrew Wiley will be the starting right tackle, at least week 1. Will he finish the season out as that? Who knows? But I think week 1, it'll be Andrew Wiley and mystery left tackle from the 2024 draft.
I do think that a rookie is going to be starting at right tackle. And I do believe that a veteran will be starting at left tackle. I know that everyone wants to trade back and do the Joe Alt route or Olu and everything. I just don't find us in that kind of position. Like if you're going to go quarterback, you're going to go quarterback with that first one. And the tackle you're going to get in that later end of the second is not in the first round. It's not going to be there that you wanted left tackle. So if I'm going to say anything, I think the right tackle is possibly going to be the rookie. And we could be seeing a Lucas or a possible trade for currently starting left tackle somewhere else, playing left tackle, in my personal opinion. I'm probably wrong. I'm usually wrong in this sort of regard. Especially with the Ron Rivera drafts, I was so bad at that. Like, I didn't even look at Braden Daniels, bro. That's the crazy thing about it all. I don't even know, man. I don't know. Yeah. Now, his next question, Tim's, is, who will start at left guard week 1, Hall? Allegrati, Chris Paul, Dieter, Stromberg, or a player not yet on the team?
I think it'll be Allegretti. He's talked about – I know he was like the backup in Kansas City, but he talked about wanting to go somewhere and compete for a starting job, and he thinks he has the ability to be a starter. But they signed him to a 3-year deal, right? Yeah. So just based off the 3-year deal, obviously nothing is given to you, especially with this regime. I don't think anything's going to be given to them, but you just think that with the contract, the 3-year deal, the money they're paying him, he's probably going to start out as a starting left guard. So I would go with Allegretti.
Dude, the one in here is Chris Paul. Because let's say they do draft Patrick Paul and they think the world of Patrick. And look, a lot of people like Patrick. He's 6'7". He has the complete build, right? But let's just say they do. Like, would it be crazy to think that Chris Paul would win that just by motivation being able to play next to his brother? I mean, of course. But I think Oligrati probably will get it. And I think because, in my personal opinion, what Oligrati did in the playoffs for the Chiefs is what Jackson Carman did for the Cincinnati Bengals. And Jackson Carman, instead of getting that opportunity to leave and start somewhere else, right? He never got that ability. They went and they traded for like Orlando Brown. They went they haven't given him that chance, even though he came up at left tackle and balled out in the playoffs for them. So with Oligrati, this is his ability to say, I did well in the playoffs. You see what I did as a starter. Now is my time to be able to prove to you I'm a full-time starter. And I really appreciate that about Oligrati and being able to have that opportunity. And I think that he will take advantage of it because from everything that I've heard, he seems like the type of offensive lineman that would fit in well with the Hogs back in their heyday. And that's the type of guy I want starting on my offensive line.
Yep.
But it's a great question. And he did not include Andrew Wiley. So, which could also start at left guard possibility, just putting that caveat in there. Now, the next question, will Trevor Lawrence have his fifth-year option picked up in May?
Yeah. That's not even a question. I mean, look, a lot of people are saying that, like they're putting his numbers versus Gardner Minshew and whatnot, but this is always context. Like, obviously, the first year was a disaster for Trevor Lawrence. So that's going to kind of skew some of his numbers. The Jaguars, the years with Gardner Minshew was with the Jaguars. He was putting up a lot of numbers, but they weren't winning a lot of games. He was throwing the ball a lot because they were down a lot.
Yeah, their head coach is
So
too busy finger banging on
exactly. So
disco banging.
look, and then you go back to last year. A lot of people are giving him crap about last year, but the dude was banged up. He had a bunch of injuries, nagging injuries throughout the year. We've seen that when he's healthy, he's a top end, like top half of the league quarterback. And I think the Jaguars would be crazy not to pick up his fifth-year option.
Yeah, I understand why they would bring the question up, right? Because a lot of people have been poo-pooing Trevor Lawrence. But that being said, Jacksonville themselves, can you honestly sit here and say that you were better off pre-Trevor Lawrence? Look, yes, you had one great year with Blake Bortles. You had a phenomenal defense with Jalen Ramsey on it. What did it get you? You know? And obviously, Trevor Lawrence, what did it get you? It hasn't gotten you all that much. But the fact is, you have been more consistent over the years than you were previously. From a team standpoint with Doug Peterson, I think at this point you would pick up that fifth-year option because you don't want to be in the situation of having to go get a quarterback anyway. And let's say Trevor Lawrence, you don't pick up his fifth-year option, so he's playing to be a free agent. Let's say he balls out, and now you're sitting at like 23 in the draft. What are you going to do next year? You have to go get a free agent, or you got to trade up. So I think in your point, I think you have to pick up the fifth-year option for Trevor Lawrence, and if it doesn't pan out, and you start over, again. But you give him 2 years to be able to finish that thing. I agree with you in that sense. Look, and he looks a lot like my younger brother Ty, just a longer hair. It is crazy, absolutely crazy. Question from Tim: we all have been having disputes over which quarterback we select at number 2. But suppose we actually do trade back. What would that actually have to look like to get you on board?
Yeah, I mean, you still got to. To me, if you're going to trade back, you still got to come away with a quarterback. Whether you're trading back and say all the hype around JJ McCarthy's not true, and he somehow slips like Will Levis to that. I don't know. Let's use the Minnesota trade example. You trade down to 11. If somehow JJ slips down to 11, be like kind of like the Will Levis where you got hyped up, and then didn't even go in the first round. You draft JJ McCarthy or a guy like Penix. You like Bo Nix. I'm 50-50 on Bo Nix. I see it.
Can I explain? I like Bo Nix and Michael Penix a lot, in particular because both of them get the ball out of their hands. They attack the middle. The first video I showed of Bo Nix is him in the goal line in the red zone, about to get swallowed up, and is able to get the ball out of his hands and fling it like sidearm to get the touchdown. With Michael Penix, it's similar where he's able to get the ball out of his hands. He's sitting flat-footed, pressure in his face. He flicks the ball with his left hand and puts the ball in a dime for Romeo Odunze at the sideline, which is a beautiful catch. They get the ball in their hands, which gives them the ability to get out of sacks. And in the NFL, that is something that really helps out rookie quarterbacks. Because, Jaden Daniels and others, they have their legs to be able to escape pressure. Well, if you have the ability to use your arm to escape pressure, that can help you a heck of a whole lot, and it doesn't get you as injured as often as well.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I think my guy, this is my guy. But Dan Orlovsky was saying that Bo Nix is actually the best fit outside of Caleb Williams, is the best fit for Cliff Kingsbury's offense just because
He
he
sweats
plays that
football.
kind of he plays that point guard role. He gets the ball out of his hands quickly. And honestly, I think Michael Penix could fit in this offense as well
Thank you.
because the downfield, the vertical passing of
Yep.
this that Cliff likes to run with. He also gets the ball out quick. He got a quick release,
You imagine
and he's a
Terry and
quick,
Jahan having that sort of accuracy too,
exactly
dude?
like quick
Sorry. I know.
processor, great
I'm just
accuracy.
loving
So,
everything you're saying right now. Just keep going.
but yeah. So I mean, look, if they're gonna trade down, like obviously I'm not opposed to it because you're picking up more assets. You're setting yourself up better for the future as well because you're probably going to get some 2025 picks as well. But like I said, my thing is you still got to come away with a quarterback. Like Marcus Mariota, probably a great dude that puts no inspiration into any fans, honestly, for going into the 2024 season. So you got to come away with a quarterback if you're going to trade down. That's my opinion.
Look, Timothy. Look, I'm like Reed at a truck stop. I'm easy in this regard. I am all cool with trading down. I am all cool with taking a quarterback because in my opinion, I know that's probably a lot of people say that's a cop out answer. In my opinion, the value of that second pick is immense because either you're setting yourself up long term by trading back and getting multiple assets over a long period of time, high value, or you're getting the face of your franchise at number 2, which to me
Hopefully.
screams value. And either way, and I'm happy because I know that Washington is better. And in the draft, that's all that matters. A lot of people have attached themselves to certain players, to certain names, myself included. I did this last year. I loved Christian Gonzalez, and I watched it happen right in front of my face, and still got to me. But now it's kind of this is where we are, where we say we got to take a step back and understand that we have no idea what they want. Like literally zero. And it's not because they just don't want us to know. It's also because we haven't seen what they wanted. All of
Yeah.
these guys are coming from separate teams, and it's not like there's really an MO to really attach here. And because of the free agency signings, you got Marcus Mariota being brought in, and then you have my name Jeff Driscoll, and so like the two polar opposites quarterbacks, so they're screwing with you a little bit, right? And so you really don't know how it's going to go. So that's the beauty of all of this. I will say, I don't care. Let's just make the team better, and I'm just ready for football. To be honest, a lot of people will say the draft is probably one of the best times, and I get it. It's just it gets me hyped up for this team to be better, and you're just waiting to be excited, ready to go, essentially, waiting to leave.
Yeah.
Now the next question. This is from Deluxe in the Discord. Thank you, Deluxe. This one is down here. Has a team without an established quarterback with the top 10 pick ever traded down and still taken a quarterback with their first pick?
Um, Off the top of my head, I can't really think of a team that's done that, but I mean, I'm sure it's happened in NFL history at some point in time, but off the top of my head, I can't really think of a team that's done that, especially now in like the quarterback driven like era league, like the league the quarterback driven era that the league is in right now, where it's like so important to get a quarterback and they're like the prized possession of the NFL, basically, especially on a rookie deal. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it's probably happened like before in the past, but I don't think it's happened that I can think of over the past like 5-10 years.
I don't think it's happened. Like I'm trying to think like of other teams that have done it, and nobody has done it. I don't think so. I'm not really sure.
It's
I'm
it's
not.
usually the opposite. Teams are usually trying to trade up to get
Yeah,
the quarterbacks.
yeah, and that's probably what Arch's point is
Yeah.
that if we do trade down, we're not taking a quarterback with that first pick. And that's essentially what he's saying. And I get it. And that's what would fit in with the whole thought process on being able to get one of those tackles. Because 11 is the sweet spot for one of those tackles that you really like. J.C. Latham, Talise Fuaga, Olu Fushanu. Joe Alt should be gone in the top 5. But depending on what happens with quarterbacks, could he make it to 11 if that is the proposed trade
I
assets?
don't think he gets past Tennessee, honestly.
I'm either, and I really hope he doesn't. That would make so much sense. Like now that you say it, just because obviously Taylor Lewan and everything leaving. Damn you.
Yep.
Yeah, I love Joe Walt too, which would absolutely be dreadful. But what would it mean? What would it take for me to be on board? I think what Fly Guy offered earlier fits the bill. Whereas you're getting 2 first-round picks, you're getting a first-round pick next year and a second-round pick, and going to a team that you could possibly see falling short of making the playoffs, where it's a good value pick there. I think with Minnesota and that trade package that Fly Guy offered is probably the best bet. In my personal opinion, win you over. I know I said a lot about Justin Jefferson, but the only reason I'm saying that is to pump that number up, man. Just give me more. You know what I'm saying? That's all I would say. I would just keep saying Justin Jefferson until they offer me something to make me shut up. That's just how I go. But Fly Guy actually has another question. This one is, he said, much shorter, but we're already past that point now. Fly Guy, point of no return. He said, can each of you give me 3 players already on the roster, offense, defense, or special teams with the new kickoff rule, and our new kicker McManus? Who do y'all think will break out and thrive under our new staff? He says Jamin, Quan, and Kaz Allen.
I like that. I forgot they signed Kaz Allen back. Special teams. I'll say I'll go with McManus. I think that
You don't have to go with special teams. Just
well, I'll just give one of each position. Special team, I'll say McManus just because he has the big leg. Been pretty accurate throughout his career. Veteran in this league. Defense. I think I like the Quan Martin pick. I think that Jamin Davis is going to have a breakout year. It's not like a breakout year, but I think that we're going to see the Jamin Davis that everyone's been expecting to see since he was drafted as a rookie. I think Dan Quinn and Joe Witt are going to kind of use him in that Micah Parsons off the edge, blitzing linebacker role. And offense, got to go with my guy, Jahan Dotson. I think he's going to have a bounce back. I think Cliff is going to get him involved in the screen game, the quick passing game, over the middle, those crossing routes. I think Jahan goes not back to his rookie year, but somewhere close to what he did numbers wise in his rookie year.
I'm with it. If you want my honest opinion, it is Cole Turner. I think Cole Turner is going to flourish in this system. I think Cliff Kingsbury can really capitalize on somebody who's light on their feet, quick, who's working on getting blocking, but is also 6'6", young, and has the legs for it. Hasn't really been tested. Had a redshirt year last year, kind of, and that could be possibly somebody you could really benefit in this offense. Secondly, do I have to go defense? I guess I have to. I'll say John Allen and Deron Payne. I think, look, as much as of a cop-out answer that is, we've talked about the shark teeth kind of defense that Dan Quinn and company did in Dallas, where all the time they're moving guys around to screw with you. Micah Parsons is over the right tackle. Next play, he's over the left guard and center. Next play, he's over the right tackle. So it always changes with their defense. And I think Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne, their ability to have their strength, their pass rushing ability, I think they're going to flourish in this system, dude. Because before, you could just dedicate 2 blockers to each, and you'd be able to run the ball all day long. I think that is changing now. I think these guys actually know how to deploy them, and they're going to be heat-seeking missiles on quarterbacks and running backs, and it's going to be fun to watch. Did I give them both? Yeah, I already gave 2, so that's good.
Did Cole Turner ever hit you up about those golf lessons?
I'm sure that's coming. I haven't run away from that. I'm going to teach him. He just got to let me know. His obviously schedules are being different. I know that after he interviewed with us, he was going on vacation, right?
Right.
And so that was hard to do. But before we wrap up here, dude, we're only about at 43 minutes. Anything you want to talk about today before we head out?
I'll answer you this question. Outside of obviously quarterback and left tackle, what do you think their next biggest position of need is?
You said besides quarterback and left tackle?
Yeah, or either tackle, whatever. It doesn't have to be left or right tackle. But outside of quarterback and tackle, what do you think their biggest position of need is?
Honestly, I think safety is probably growing up there, just in terms of Derek Forrest coming out of Cincinnati was one of the better free safety range kind of sideline to sideline guys. And so a lot of people are saying this will benefit Derek Forrest by going in the box. Derek Forrest can hit, but that doesn't mean that he's a box safety. That the dude is a very good free safety. It's just being able to stay healthy for it. I think we all forget about that when Cam Curl and Defoe were one of the best safety tandems in the NFL at one point. Yep. And so I think safety is going to be a big necessity because even Jeremy Chin, they were talked about being used as a linebacker, right? And it doesn't really fit exactly what you want to do there. So I think safety could possibly be there, but ultimately it's probably a toss-up. between it depends on if they take Penix and it turns to right tackle immediately. But wide receiver and corner, I think, are very, very pressing. And I think that that's something like even corner though, Hall, you could make an argument saying they already have a setup of guys where they're big and tall, where you have Emmanuel Forbes, you have Benjamin St. Juste, you have Quan Martin. He's not the tallest guy in the world, but he can hit, dude. He can lay lumber, play there on the slot. And so could you be arguing that maybe they possibly need a just like how wide receiver short and they need a taller guy? What if at corner they're possibly looking for a shorter, quicker guy? Maybe we're looking at this all wrong. And that's the way I was kind of viewing it a little bit. But I think wide receiver is up there as well. I think we need playmakers and explosion. And if this is the plethora kind of draft, I think this is where you could go and dig in and get somebody and feel good down the road and saying, you're not in a you're not in an emergency situation if an injury occurs, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was gonna say secondary, whether it be safety or corner. I mean, like you said, you can make the argument for corner just because you don't really know what you're gonna get out of Emmanuel Forbes. Like, do you think he'll be better this year? In the second year, obviously, with better coaching, they're gonna be playing a lot of man to man, I think. And I think with the pass rush, like you said, they're hopefully gonna work hand to hand and correlate together, which hopefully will turn into turnovers, which the Dallas defense specialized in with Joe Witt and Dan Quinn being there. And like you said, I was going to say receiver also because I believe that Jahan is going to have a bounce back year. We know what Terry
Yeah.
represents on the field, but like you said, we need explosive playmakers. We need guys that can get down the field and put points on the board. And if this is going to be a team that's going to play a lot of man, hopefully get a lot of turnovers, I want to have that explosive player on offense to complement Terry and Jahan, and then we can put more points on the board because obviously it's an offensive league, so you need explosion, you need playmakers, and we know that Cliff Kingsbury likes to go a lot of 3-4 wide out receivers spread the field out. So I would definitely say they need an explosive playmaker on offense to complement what they already have at the receiving core. And like you said, I do think they need a safety to kind of complement what Derek Forrest can do as well.
Yeah, and with what they like to do, with, like in Dallas, we talked about how they moved around Micah Parsons. Well, they can also do that with secondary as well. And these two guys come to mind because the Miami Hurricanes, their secondary was deployed in a very similar way with James Williams and Cameron Kitchens. Cameron Kitchens more so being the free safety, kind of being long field, deep zone corner, where James Williams was more so of the Cameron Curl, where he was more so of the box safety, come down and play linebacker a lot, and was honestly producing at each one of those, but also would play cover two in a zone as a deep safety on plays, James Williams would. So I think either one of those guys you could add in here and feel good about. And James Williams, that would almost be checking off two spots by getting him, by adding him, by saying you're adding that box safety, by also getting help as a linebacker, whereas you're not depending on Jeremy Chin to be that safety all the time. And you have somebody who's more reliable in coverage. I think he's like 6'3", 6'4", if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And Cameron Kitchens is smaller, if I'm not mistaken, in that regard. That was a good question, dude. But I know that have your opinion on every day your quarterback opinion changes.
Yeah, no, I'm still on the Jaden Daniels side. Like, yeah, I mean, I planted my flag on the Jaden Daniels side a couple weeks ago, and I'm just gonna stick with that. But it's not like I'm all like half the people on Twitter where they're like, "Oh, Jaden Daniels, if they draft Drake May, and then I'm gonna be mad and complain about it." Like, no, I think Drake May is gonna hopefully, if he can clean up his footwork and mechanics, will turn out to be a great quarterback. Obviously, he has all the traits and abilities and the talent in the world. He just got to clean his stuff up. But like you said, I think Jaden Daniels gives you that instant kind of hit the ground running success. And I know that they say they want to build it the right way, but I know they also want to put butts in the seats. And a guy like Jaden Daniels that can maybe hit the ground running gives you that 7 to 8, that floor of 7 to 8 wins maybe with his legs and throwing ability would probably put some excitement and some butts in the seats. So I think that, and obviously you shouldn't be drafting to like put butts in the seats, but I'm just saying like he also checks the boxes on the field as well. So yeah, I'm still team Jaden Daniels. What about you?
The epiphany I had, because we have friends in Discord that bring stuff up to make you screw with your head because they bring up good points about everything. Like everybody has a good point. Like everybody who likes Daniels makes a great point. Everybody who likes May, phenomenal points. And thus far, and trading back, those guys make a fantastic point themselves. But the epiphany that I had, it really screwed me up, Paul. In years past, when we talked about quarterback prospects like balling out, like Pat Mahomes, so to speak, what would be the one thing we always said? Well, that I always said, and that is Patrick Mahomes got put into a very good situation where he would put on a winning team. He was the backup. He learned for a year, got put into a situation with a fantastic head coach who already had his offensive system already molded and everything like that. And obviously, that's just one case. But go down the list of these other guys where they get put in really good situations, like Justin Herbert, like with LA. Fantastic situation with great wide receivers on the outside at your disposal, playmakers, Austin Eckler everywhere. My point being is the epiphany that can you say that that's what's going to happen this year at number two?
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
And that's where it's like, damn, because the whole time you're right. I've been thinking politically, saying Josh Harris, the company, want to show this is a new face of the franchise, is a new team. Dan Snyder might have really struggled with getting quarterbacks, but at number two, we're going to get you, long term. But in all reality, you have to ask yourself that realistic question of saying, can you say that the team is going to be better and that quarterback is going to be put into a successful situation at number two? And
Yeah.
honestly, that's the question where I'm stuck at right now because I don't know.
Honestly, you're not gonna be able to answer that question until they've done whatever they're gonna do in the draft, and they're going into like OTA's training camp because by then you'll have a good sense of okay, this player is going to be here. Like this is going to be probably the left tackle of the future. Or this is going to be the right tackle of the future. Or obviously, this is the quarterback. And I mean, to your point earlier, they definitely put the correct coaching staff around to kind of cultivate and develop and grow a young quarterback. It's just about how is that quarterback going to take to the learning, take to the NFL, and to your point, are the weapons and the playmakers around him going to be enough to help him out as well? Because we don't know. We thought that going into last year, like, oh, the playmakers would be able to help Sam out. And although he put up numbers and yards and touchdowns, it didn't really turn out wins and losses wise, obviously.
But
So
I will say that, and I will say this, in disagreement and argument counter to trading back. If trading back was ever a possibility in your mind, you don't trade Sam Howell.
yeah,
You take
exactly.
advantage of Sam Howell in that regard. You're paying him on a low deal. It's not like you're married to him in that regard. You could continue for a year. And so I will say that the trade of Sam Howell is the big argument to the counter of that, just speaking of what reality is. But I understand how the argument is the team honestly set up for success? And that's why I believe that if they are going quarterback at two, I think that they're going to have to trade for a left tackle. And maybe one of those third rounders leaves to be able to get a left tackle that's already playing right now to be able to come in and play right immediately for you and help you. Because that's going to be hard to do. I've heard of like guys flying up the draft boards, like Roger Rosengarten and everything. I watched him a little bit. Pretty good. He's got the fundamentals and he looks really good set up. But it's not somebody that you are going to feel confident facing against Michael Parsons for 60 minutes. You know what I mean? And that's the kind of
Right.
question you need to be asking yourself. That guy's going to be starting for you.
But what like left tackle would even like be possibly like they trade for? Because if a team's going to trade away their left tackle, their starting left tackle, they're going to have another guy either in the wings waiting or like a second left tackle on their team that they can just plug and play right away. So
You got
that's
to
what I'm
look at
trying to think. I'm
contract
like,
situation. You got to look at contract situations. Teams that are paying a lot of money that are looking to dissolve long-term money. Like let's say
and then they
they
draft
know
the left tackle and the rookie and plug him in.
right,
I
like
get
they
yeah,
know that they can't pay that guy a salary when his time is up as a free agent, so they need to get rid of him now. And
right.
maybe they feel like they have somebody on the roster that can do that. Obviously, we have Lucas, and no disrespect to Lucas, I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, like you said, he's a good plug and play guy for a couple games here and there. If you're in a pinch, you got to put him out there for a 3-4 game stretch. Yeah, he's perfectly fine. But like you said, when you got to go a whole full 17 game season with a guy like Cornelius Lucas or even Trent Scott, that's when it gets a little dicey. So,
And for me,
um,
I
yeah,
will feel much more confident with a rookie quarterback if it's Nix or Penix. And the only reason I'm saying that is because of the quick release. The one thing about Drake May is he does have a long release. And if we're going to have an offensive line that doesn't have a stable left tackle, stable tackles outside that you feel confident in, you got to be able to get the ball out of your hands quickly. And you got to be able to work and be able to be successful in those situations. And I think somebody like Penix and Nix have shown even with pressure in their face, they're able to get that ball out. But I don't feel confident with that with drafting it at 2. I understand why they would do it, but that's why we're here discussing it, because that's one hell of a freaking question, dude. Like,
Yeah.
the balls of Adam Peters if he drafted Michael Penix at 2. I mean, my goodness, dude.
You know what? I'm going to change my answer to I think who's going to have like a breakout, like I said, Jahan Dotson for the offensive player. I think it's going to be Brian Robinson. Now that I'm really thinking about it, because you're going to have a rookie quarterback.
Yep.
You're going to have the line that you have you have Dan Quinn, who obviously defensive head coach.
And
Going
that
to
goes
want
into
to
the J.J. McCarthy argument, which I
want to
hate.
ground him. Yes, I know you want to ground and pound, run the ball, and set that quarterback up for success with the play action. You got Anthony Lynn here to marry the run game with Cliff's offense in the passing game. So I think that Brian Robinson
I would
is going to have a
argue
crazy year too.
that Drake May could flourish in that type of environment. If you're not forcing him to go air raid, if you are leaning heavily on the run game, dumping it off, be able to use that kind of Michigan style of offense game plan, or Detroit, you could say, that Drake May would be able to fit in perfectly. I would say Jaden Daniels as well, but you know what I mean.
And that's why whenever people are like, "Oh, Drake May should sit for a year," and da 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 da, like, yes, does he have stuff to clean up? Obviously, but if you're going to rely on the running game and not put the whole entire game on his shoulders like Eric Bieniemy did with Sam Howell, I think that Drake May would be able to go out there and play. Obviously, dude, not injury wise, but a whole 17-game season.
Dude, everybody has asked us like, do you think Marcus Mariota could start the season, and what would you feel about it and everything? You know, I've said so much, you know, and if it turns out that he is starting, dude.
So it's going to be a rough week 1. There's going to be some.
And no disrespect to Marcus. I know, just saying the hype up of the quarterback at 2 and like the new face, and then, you know, we get Marcus.
Could you imagine everyone going back and forth all off season on Twitter about this quarterback, that quarterback? I want this guy, that guy, just to roll out week 1 and it's Marcus Mariota started. People would be like, wow.
Yeah, I know. But that would all go into the Sam Howell bit, you know, trading away him. But, you know, brother,
people would be so mad if they start Marcus Mariota week 1. They're like, you could have just kept Sam and rolled him out there week 1. Like,
yeah. At this point in the draft cycle, have you guys ever seen what is that movie called? With Paul Rudd and the dude from American Pie, Role Models, and they're in the counselor's office, the one lady with the spiked up blonde hair, and you're like, this is how I feel. She's like, you're standing over there, and you're standing over there, and I don't know which way is up. Like that is how I feel about this draft process right now, because we have been pulled in all directions. JJ McCarthy, you know, I'm just waiting for the Spencer Rattler route to get here at some point.
Right.
But that's just how I feel at the moment. So thank you to Zach Selby for sticking it with us from the Defenders game in this episode of What's Bakin on the Burgundy Zone. Thank you to everybody who submitted in with questions. If you'd like to be involved in the mock draft on Thursday, just reach out via DM on IG, Facebook, Twitter. You could search the Burgundy Zone and it'll come up for you guys. All right, everybody, we'll see you again on Thursday. Hopefully we'll see Reed then as well. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
And we'll see you then, guys. Have a great, safe Sunday, and have a great week at work. Try to make it go by fast. Washington football.
Yes,
oh, yeah.
please.
Do not look at the eclipse, Hall. Just remember.
Yeah. Thank you for that reminder.
Everyone is talking about it so much that there's going to be somebody to look at it.
Of course, there's going to be someone to look at it.
What's the point of telling me about it if I can't look at it? And I was talking to my wife. She was like, do you think we should buy those solar glasses? And I was like, no. I was like, what we'll do is we'll just wait for somebody to upload a video that already has a camera with that equipment on it, and we'll just watch it then. It's fine. You know?
Exactly.
All right, everybody. We'll see you on Thursday. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.